All right, everyone, let's begin a new tutorial here. A little furniture designing tutorial, creating this very simple coffee table. But in creating this coffee table, there's actually going to be quite a few important tools that we'll use in order to complete this. And what I really want to focus on is creating components that are assembled together for this particular design. So this is a coffee table here that I have. Uh, Here's a coffee table right here. Okay, so there's a picture of it that we're actually going to create. So I measured up this coffee table here and just quickly designed it in Fusion. And you'll see just how easy it is, especially once you get more comfortable with the software. There's numerous ways we can design this. There's different things that we can do to kind of get to the same final product. I'm going to show you one way, and as much as possible, I'll try to explain other ways as well that you could have completed something like this. All right, so some of the important things I want to show you is, of course, the assemblies. Okay, the assembly here. Creating new components. So in the previous birdhouse video, in one of my birdhouse tutorials, we created components after we created bodies. And that's one way of doing it, but in this design, I'm actually going to show you how to just create components right from the beginning instead of creating bodies first and then turning them into components. So that's one thing. And then assembling those components together. The other important feature is going to be a copy and paste feature. And there's two different ways that we can copy and paste here well, there's a few different ways. I'm going to try to show you, or at least talk to you about a few of them. Okay, so that's an important little piece of information that we'll get from this. And then as well, cutting out these holes here from this piece of wood, okay, that is kind of like the shelf at the bottom of the coffee table. So I'll show you how to easily do that as well. And then what I also want to do is, let's pretend that we are going to create or construct this ourselves. We would want to create some 2D construction drawings. And so I'm just going to quickly take you through that as well and show you how you can component by component show dimensions of your drawing so that if you were to create it yourself, you have the full plans in order to do so. All right, and then of course applying appearances and materials as well. Okay, so let's begin with a new design. All right, so like I mentioned, we are actually going to start a new component from scratch here before drawing any bodies. All right, now the top component here, this is the parent component. Okay, it always is just named by default unsaved, but you can rename that. All right, and all components will fall underneath that. And the first thing I want to do is actually go into the document settings here and change from millimeters to inches because I did measure everything in inches. So let's do that first. Okay, and like I said, here is your top component from which everything stems from. That's your parent component. Okay, we are going to now create a new component that goes under that. So you're going to go to Assemble, New Component. Okay, and it's an empty component. Let's call it, we're going to start with actually the tabletop. That is going to be the first part we're going to construct, and we're going to activate it. And the parent, of course, we have to make sure that we're selecting the proper parent. Right now, it's our only option, so it's by default already selected. This is the parent, okay, that we will be stemming from, and hit OK. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the tabletop, then I'll create the legs, okay? Then I'll create these support brackets that attach the legs and the tabletop, and then we will slide this tabletop down into this position here, and then make sure everything is assembled together. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So we've created our new component, so now everything we create now goes under that component. So I'm going to go to New Sketch. So this sketch now will be in this component. Let's go with that top view. And let's just do a rectangle R on your keyboard from here and change the dimensions. It's at 5.4 inches. We need to be much bigger than that. Table is 48 by 48 inches. So 4 feet by 4 feet. Hit enter. Okay, zoom to fit just so you can see your rectangle here. Okay, so this little button here, zoom to fit. And let's finish that sketch. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. And I like to see in 3D here before I hit extrude so that I can see where I'm pulling this arrow up from, whether I'm pulling it up or down. All right, now my tabletop is only 1 inch thick. So by the way, for extrude, I just hit E on my keyboard. And now I'm just going to type in my 1 inch. Okay, and there you have it. So you've got your 1 inch tabletop all ready to go. All right, and it's a component. Next, let's create the legs. All right, so what you're going to do now is, again, go to assemble, new component, but just make sure that you go back to the parent, okay, and make the parent, activate the parent component versus having the tabletop component activated. All right, so we're going to go to assemble again, new component. And you can see, because I already have done that, my parent component's already selected. Okay, so let's call this leg 1 and hit OK. All right, so you can see that now that this is no longer activated, this shape kind of goes gray. That's normal. It goes a very light gray. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to orbit around to the bottom, and I'm going to go to create new sketch. And you can see I'm selected in my proper component here, new sketch, and I'm going to sketch on this bottom face of the tabletop. So click. Okay, now I'm actually just going to hit rectangle, and I'm going to create a rectangle here. Okay, let's say that this is just going to be 4 by 4. Okay, so 4 by 4 inch leg, and you can see it's not fully constrained yet. So make sure that the distance from here to the edge, okay, is actually just going to be 0.75 inches. And the distance from here to the edge will also be 0.75 inches. Okay? All right. So at this point now, I am just going to extrude this. Okay? And I'm going to tell you about a couple different things you can do in order to draw your other legs. So I'm done with this sketch. It's already fully constrained. Finish sketch, okay? Hit E on your keyboard, and let's select this profile, right? And notice how I'm still clicked in my component here. That's what I want. And let's drag this down 20 inches, okay? 20 inches. And because we're already in a new component, you don't have to select new component here. Keep that as a body so that it'll be a body within this component, okay? So it's a body within this component. That's what we want. So hit OK. All right, so if I kind of come out of here now and I activate my parent component, you can see this is what I have so far. Now, there's a few different things you can do. I can just copy and paste this leg into these 4 corners. I know exactly how far away those legs need to be. Okay, I've already kind of measured it out, so I know how far away the legs need to be. I can also do a rectangular pattern as well, okay? So if I wanted to do a rectangular pattern, okay, you would go to Create, Pattern, Rectangular Pattern. Now, by default, the pattern type is faces. You want to change that to components, okay? And then select the object. Here's the object, okay? Select the direction. Okay, so we're going to click on that, and now you have your axes pop up, and you can select the direction in which you want to create this pattern. All right, so we want to come across this way, so I'm going to select this line, okay? And we also want to go across that way there as well, okay? So now let's see here. Look at as I pull this out, it's making 3 copies. I don't want that. I just want 2 copies. okay? And I actually, because I measured it out, I want them to be 42.5 inches apart. That takes me exactly where I need it to be, okay? All right, and let's just orbit around and make sure that we're happy with this, okay? Now, that's the first part. Now what you can do is actually just take this arrow here, okay, and drag that out, and look at this now, how easy this is. Now the only thing is it made two, and that's because I chose two directions. I chose this line to go in this direction, and then I chose this axis here to go in the other direction. So when you choose direction, make sure you do two directions, this way and this way, all right? So that's important. If you only choose one direction, then you can only go in one direction. Now, to escape here, I only want to create two, all right? And because it's negative, I'm going to keep that negative 42.5. So this is a perfect square. Remember that it was 48 by 48. And hit OK. And you can see that it actually created 4 different components here. 4 different components, okay? Which is great. It's perfect. Now, I could have copied and pasted as well. So I could have taken this leg, right, clicked on it, right-clicked, copy, okay? And then come to my parent function, okay? This is important. So you copy it here, and then you right-click on your parent function and go to your paste. Now I didn't copy it, so paste didn't show up here, okay? But if I copy this, okay, there you go. Now there's 2 options there, paste and paste new. I'm going to talk about paste new a little bit later. For the leg, because they're identical legs, I would just go to paste, okay? But later we'll talk about how important the paste new button is, all right? So that's another way you could have done it. Just copied and pasted each leg and then moved them into position, okay? So you definitely could have done it that way. All right, so perfect. Next, let's get our support brackets in, okay, which is those horizontal brackets that go across here. All right, so let's draw one. So to do that, again, make sure you're clicked on the top component here. Go to Assemble, New Component. Let's call it Horizontal Bracket Support. Actually, let's just call it Horizontal Support. Okay? All right, so now everything goes light gray because now we're in the horizontal support component, and what we're going to do is go to Create Sketch. And this time I'm actually going to create the sketch on this face, okay? This face right here, okay? That's on that leg. And you can see I'm going to get this side view here, but I've got this other leg in the way. So what I'm actually going to do is just kind of orbit around. I don't want to see this leg here, so I'm just going to hide it. So I'm going to just come here. Let's hide all the other legs right now so that I only see that there, and go back to the right view so I can see it straight on again. And let's zoom to fit. Okay, so that I can see that a lot more clearly. All right, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a rectangle right in the middle here. Okay, and we're going to extrude that rectangle out. All right, but how are we going to get that rectangle in the middle? Well, one of the things you can do is hit the line tool, L on your keyboard, and choose the construction little button there, and we're going to create a construction line right in the middle. You can see it snap to the midpoint when that triangle pops up, and just draw a line. Doesn't matter how long it is, okay? And hit the check mark when you're happy with it. That's going to be kind of like our symmetry line, all right? And now you're going to do a rectangle, R, on your keyboard, and just draw it from anywhere. It doesn't matter. And you can, oh, I still have the construction button selected. Uncheck that. Back to rectangle. And just draw your rectangle any way that you want, as long as it's snapped on this top line here. And now what you're going to do is you're going to apply a symmetry constraint. So click on the symmetry constraint. And there's 3 clicks. This line and this line I want to be symmetrical. So I click on them, and then I want them to be symmetrical across this middle line. And there you have it. Now it is perfectly situated in the middle. Now you can dimension it. Hit D on your keyboard, and this is only going to be 1 inch thick. All right, and this line I want to be bigger, not 4 inches. I actually want that to be, let's go with 6 inches. And there you have it, okay? So we can finish sketch. And I'm going to turn everything back on so I can see everything, except for the origin there. And I'm going to go to my 3D home view here. And I'm going to hit E on my keyboard and select the profile that you want to extrude. And just bring it out a little bit here. And now what you're going to do is you want it to touch this face here. So you can put in an exact dimension, no problem. Or make it easier on yourself. And actually, instead of choosing distance under extent, choose to object. All right. And now it's saying, okay, select the object you want it to touch. Well, oh, sorry about that. Go back to to object. And let's select here, orbit around, and choose this face right there. And there you have it. That easy. And I'm happy with it being a new body because I've already created my component. And go to OK. Perfect. Okay, so next, you can see I'll activate my top parent again, and you can see I only have one of these. I obviously need to move all of those into position. And that's actually going to be fairly easy to do. Once again, we can use the copy and paste method, but I'm going to show you even another way to do it, just using the move copy function, which is the exact same as copy and paste, except with copy and paste, you have the option to paste new, meaning these parts can be unique. Because if I copy and paste this, if I make a change to this, it changes everything that I pasted that came from this. Okay, but when you go to paste new, it keeps it allows you to have unique parts, even though you've copied and pasted. If you change one part, then it doesn't change all of them that you copied and pasted. But for this, these are going to be identical. The only difference is going to be that we have to change positions here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select here, okay, and just make sure that it's selected. See, it only selected the face there, all right? So be careful there. There's something in this menu here. It must be, if we select priority, okay, let's select component as a priority so that the first thing this software looks for is components and not faces. See that? It's selecting whole components. So let's do that. Let's click on it, right click, move copy. Okay. And the first thing you got to do, I know you want to start moving this, don't. Click on create copy. Now it's going to create a copy and we can drag this out. All right, drag it out. And it doesn't matter how much you drag it out as long as I can see this face, because you'll see I will join this face to here. And notice how it created a new component underneath the parent component because I was clicked in the parent component when I did this move copy. Okay, hit OK. All right, now what I'm going to do is create a joint from this face right there. Now see, I don't want it, at this point now, I don't want it to actually choose components, but let's see what happens. If I go to joint, perfect. There you go. I want this middle point right there. I want that point, and I'm going to orbit around and zoom in and to that point right there. So I want those two midpoints to be butted up against each other and to create a joint. And I am going to stick with rigid joint. I don't want this joint to move, and I'm going to hit OK. All right. And there you go. And now you're just going to repeat this. So I'm going to go a little bit faster here. So I'm going to select, right click, move copy, create copy, and drag this out. Okay, just enough so I can see this face here and hit OK. And let's orbit around, zoom in. Okay. All right, and let's go to assemble joint right there. See that? And I want that to assemble to that right there. And hit OK. Let's orbit back around. Let's just go back to our home there. And last one, select the component, right click it. Notice I'm still activated in my top component, even though I've selected this. Move copy, create copy, and drag this out this way enough to see my face, hit OK. Zoom in, assemble, joint, and you may have to zoom in more just to get the point you want. There it was, right there. Pan across and orbit around. Right there. And there you have it. Hit OK. We now have our support brackets in. Now, I've joined 3 of these horizontal pieces, but I did not join, it looks like, this piece here, I believe, right? Yeah, you can see I can move this piece. And so if you can move a piece, it means that you haven't joined it. And so if you move a piece, just Control Z, undo, or Command Z on your Mac. Or you can go to revert position, and it'll go back to where it was. But you can see that the other brackets, okay, the other brackets are attached to the leg because I joined them to the leg, right? Okay, so just revert that position or Control Z. But this one here isn't attached to anything. So I do want to make this attached to something. So what I'm going to do is just create, I'm going to not click on anything actually and go to assemble. Now, I'm not going to go to joint. I'm actually, because I don't want to move anything, I'm actually going to go to as built joint, meaning that I want it to stay the way it is. The way I've assembled it here is how I want it to stay. And so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to click on assemble as built joint, and I'm going to assemble this piece to, I suppose we can do it to this piece here. It doesn't really matter. Okay, and hit OK. All right. The next thing I want to do actually is I want to ground this body here. So I'm going to join everything together, but right now, like, I don't like that I can move this piece here, and this is actually going to be my ground. This is what everything, I'm going to basically like pin this in space, and then everything will be attached to this. So the way you do that is you just right click and go to, right click the tabletop and go to ground. All right, now watch, I won't be able to move. I'm trying to move this and I can't. Okay. All right, so I'm not going to create, still I can still move these pieces, right? I'm not going to do those joints just yet. Why don't I just move this piece down into position, okay? Because remember, I need to do that little shelf on the bottom. All right, so the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to select, right click, okay? And notice, like, I'm still, remember, my priority is still component. That's why it's selecting components and not faces, right? In the select menu there. So right click. Now, if I go to move copy, it is going to create the exact same copy. And if I make changes to one, it's going to make changes to the other. That's not good enough for me here because I need this now piece to come down, but I need it to have holes where the legs are. So this is one of those ones where we're actually going to right click on the actual component in the component tree there, click on copy, and then come to my parent component, right click, paste new. Okay, so paste new now. Now I can drag this down and I can make whatever changes I want to this piece now, and it's not going to affect the original piece. All right, so let's do it 16 inches down, sure, and let's hit OK. All right, now it looks like we're almost done. Let's create all our joints. All right. What I'm going to do is show you something called a rigid group. So I'm going to actually connect this, everything basically, except for the tabletop, and make it all a rigid group so that it's all kind of joined together. All right. And actually, you know what? No, before I do that, I'll cut these holes out where these legs are, and then we'll join it all together. Let's do the joints at the end. All right. So let's cut out these legs, because as it stands now, we've got a problem. Like if I go to inspect, watch, if I select my entire, if I select everything here, oops. Okay, and I go to inspect, and I go to interference, capture position, and it's already selected, and I go to compute, it's actually going to show me an error. I have 4 interferences, meaning I have not cut out holes and I have like overlapping geometry. All right, so we're going to fix that right now. What we're going to do is use the combine tool. Combine, capture position. And the combine tool says, okay, choose your target body. This is the body that we want to cut. All right. Then it says choose your tool bodies. Okay, well, we want to use these components. These ones kind of disappear, but you can still hover your mouse over it and click on it. We want to use these components to cut our holes out. Okay. But currently, by default, this goes to join. We want to cut the holes out. All right, you can see the holes now show up. And we want to keep the tools. We don't want these legs to disappear. These legs are our tools, our cutting tools. We want to keep them and hit OK. And now you can see the holes, you can trust me, are in fact there. And if I select everything again and I go to inspect interference and I compute, I get no interferences detected. That means I have no overlapping geometry. Okay, so let's finish up the joints. And like I said, I'm going to make everything a rigid group because this is all just going to stay together, right? There's nothing opening or closing here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to assemble, rigid group. And that just allows me to make fewer joint assemblies. Like this is a lot quicker. So I can now do a rigid group and select all my parts here, 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 and here. I don't need to select the horizontal brackets because they're already attached to my legs. I already joined them. Like you can see there's a joint there, and all the way around. They're already joined to my legs. So if I try to click on that, it's going to give me an error because I've already joined it and it just says that it's over constrained. So I'm just going to hit OK. There's my rigid group. So now watch, when I go to move just one component, it actually moves that whole bottom half, that whole bottom part down. Revert position up here. And now all I have to do is create one joint instead of creating multiple. I go to assemble, as built joint, and let's assemble, let's just say this leg to the tabletop. And now everything will be, you can see I can't move anything out of the way. Everything is attached to each other. All right, so it's fully assembled. And if you want to hide these little assembly symbols here, just go into joints and click that little eyeball and hide them. Okay, last thing here is we're going to apply material, and then I'm just going to show you quickly how to bring this into a drawing and split this up into all the different components to measure and dimension. So let's quickly do, here, let's do our tabletop first. We will do a physical material. And we are going to choose wood. It's kind of weird when it does this. This is what we want to actually bring down because we need to drag our wood finish here. Let's say white oak here, I'm just going to drag this up here. Okay. And actually don't even need to do that, but then I'm just going to drag this just on the tabletop itself. Make sure that the component, the whole component is highlighted there. Okay, perfect, and hit close. And then what we'll do is, I mean, obviously I could put wood material here as well for all these, but I'll just go to the paint it black here. So I'm just going to right click on an actual component there and go to appearance. And this time, let's just choose paint. Let's do a glossy paint, black, sure. Drag it up. And now drag it on all the components that we want to be black. You can see where we copied and pasted, see how it changed all of them? Whereas the one that we pasted new, we were able to apply different materials or different colors on it. But the ones where we just copied and pasted, okay, they all turned once we turned one of them. All right, and hit OK. And there you have it. You've got your table, your coffee table. Okay, and it looks pretty close to the picture that I have here. Okay, so we did a good job. All right. The next thing I want to do, okay, is create a drawing file. So we're going to go to the design little menu there and go down to drawing from design. Okay, and I've already done this, so I don't need to save it as anything in particular. And now what we're going to do is just hit OK. So it's choosing by default a 17 by 11 sheet of paper. Sure, let's just hit OK. And you get into the kind of drawing space here of Fusion 360. All right. And the first thing you're going to do is you can see it already has a base view to drop in. And you can choose the orientation. You could do the front view, top, right, home, all these different views. Okay. Let's do the front view. Okay. And I don't want a scale of 1 to 20. That seems a little bit too small. Let's do 1 to 10. And I'm going to drop this right here. Click to drop it in, and then hit OK. And let's say that I just wanted to show the dimensions of a leg. I don't want to show all these other components because I just want to show the dimensions of the leg itself. What you do is once you've dropped it in, you have the option of hiding whatever you don't want to show. So I can, watch this, I can hide the tabletop, I can hide, let's go with this leg, this leg, this leg. I don't need those horizontal supports right now, right? So the only thing I have showing is leg 1. Perfect. And now if I go to dimension, and actually let's move this over. I don't like, to move it, just click and then grab that center dot and just move it and then click to drop it. Dimension. From here to here, and from here to here. Okay? And let's say you wanted to also show the top view of that, right? You would probably also want to show the top view because, yeah, we know the width here is 4, the height is 20, but what about the length, right? So then, okay, go again to base view and drop in, instead of a front view, do a top view. All right? And then just drop it in anywhere. And make sure your scale is 1 to 10. Stay consistent. Okay, drop it in. And we're just going to hide it all anyways, except for the leg. And hit OK. So now it's the second group here, right? This was the first group where we hit everything. Now it's the second group. Hide the tabletop. Hide everything except for leg 1. Okay, there you go. Click on it. And let's actually move it right underneath. Okay, click to drop it in and then dimension from here to here. Okay, to show that that's 4 inches. And you're going to go around and do that to every single part, every single component. So let's say the tabletop. So base view, Now let's do a top view of our tabletop, 1 to 10. Oops. All right, drop it in and hit OK. And then now it's only showing the tabletop because everything is underneath it because it's a top view. But scroll down and you still want to hide everything except for the tabletop. Right? And now just hit dimension. This we know is going to be 48. And that we know is also 48. And I'm not following any sort of standards here in terms of the spacing for my dimensioning because it is, I said this was just a construction drawing for myself if I wanted to try to build this coffee table. You can add text, by the way, as well as little leaders or arrows pointing towards text. There's a whole slew of things here that I'm not going to worry about. Right now, let's just worry about the dimensioning, and maybe you want to add text potentially somewhere just to leave yourself a little note. You could do that as well. But then for this, this isn't showing the whole tabletop. I need to show the thickness of the tabletop. So again, I'm going to go to base view, and I'm going to go to, instead of front view, I'm going to actually go, I am going to do front view this time. So I can show the thickness, 1 to 10. Let's drop it in right under, line it up right under there. Okay, and hit OK. Now scroll down and hide everything except for the table. Oops. Hide everything except for the tabletop. Okay, and then maybe just move this up. There you go. And now you can dimension and show the dimension of that there, that it is 1 inches. So you would go around and do this to everything, okay, each component. So now you would do the leg, and then you would even do the shelf part, which is identical to this. I'd probably do that right here, okay, right next to it, where you can show the location of the holes, right? So let me just I'll do that as my last one. So I'll do another top view, 1 to 10. Okay, hit OK, scroll down and hide everything except for the bottom component, which is, I forgot to rename it. It's still tabletop, but it's tabletop 1, bracket 1. There it is there, okay? And so now at least you can dimension, okay, the spacing from here. Just zoom in so you can see better. Okay, 3/4 of an inch there, 3/4 of an inch there. Okay, so you can at least see the spacing. You should already know that these holes are 4 inches. Okay, but if you wanted to show it again, you can show them again. Okay, and then of course show the thickness of it. Okay, underneath here. But we already know that it's 1 inch. And then when you're done, you can output it as a PDF. So if you wanted to print this, okay, output as a PDF, and then you can just print it out, and you'll have a construction drawing to go from. All right, so that concludes this tutorial. What we went over was quite a bit of copying and pasting new, the rectangular pattern tool, the combine tool, which cut out the holes for these legs, as well as starting new components rather than starting with bodies, and of course making an assembly of this coffee table. Okay.